Okay, and welcome back. This is lecture number 8. In the last lecture, lecture number 7, we just talked about Howard Gauner's good work model, where he talked about ethics, ethics and engagement, and just wanted to briefly cover that because I think it's very important, especially when we're talking about personal growth and personal development. And that good work model can actually be applied to any area of life, whether it's relationships, whether it's your health, whether it is your career, whatever area of life we're trying to improve. I think adhering to Howard Gauner's good work model can be key. In this last lecture for this section, we're going to be quickly talking about the social brain, which is really, really fascinating. Some new research has been done. And as a gentleman named Daniel Siegel, who was director of Mindsight Institute at UCLA, he has a quote. He said, he has a quote here that says, "For full emotional communication, one person needs to allow his state of mind to be influenced by that of the other." And what Daniel Siegel here is he's talking about a study that was done where two individuals were sat in a room who had two different emotional states. They were given a questionnaire prior to the test, and they were saying, "How do you feel?" So of 2 minutes of sitting there, staring each other in the face and not saying anything, the researchers come back in and give them another test. And what they found out was that the person who was more emotionally expressive, the other person ended up matching that person's emotional state. So if the person who was more emotionally expressive, if they were more anger or if they were fearful, then the other person looking at them became fearful. And what science is now showing is that there's actually literally certain brain cells that are exclusively for reacting to the brain cells in other people. It talks about some Italian scientists who were mapping the motor cortex in monkeys, and so every time the monkey would raise their arm, the monkey's motor cortex, some of the cell would fire in the monkey's brain. One day, while the scientists were standing around, there was a lab assistant that was near the monkey's cage licking an ice cream cone, and every time the lab assistant would lift his arm to lick the cone, the monkey's brain would start firing the same neuron as it would if the monkey was moving its own arm. So pretty much what that means is that the monkey wasn't moving its arm, but yet and still that same cell that fired when the monkey did raise his arm was firing when the scientist was raising his arm licking the cone. And that's what they call mirror neurons, and it's really fascinating. So if you go to a Google search and type in mirror neurons, and there's a whole lot of great information on that, and you can find out more about mirror neurons. And I may, in the future, once I get some more study under my belt, do a presentation or do a lecture or course on the social brain and mirror neurons. But I briefly wanted to touch on the social brain because, as we mentioned, one of the components of emotional intelligence is relationship management, and that has a lot to do with the social brain and us matching the other person's feelings when it comes to empathy. And so actually right now I'm currently studying a book called Social Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. I think, and I highly suggest that you go out and pick it up. It's very interesting. And he even talks about the social brain and mirror neurons and empathy, and that's where a lot of the work that I do comes from. Is a lot of the work from Daniel Goleman. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed this particular lecture. I know it was short, but even with those two studies or those two case studies, I hope you have at least a base definition or base understanding of the social brain. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the last section.